Oh. Hi everyone, and welcome to a new video. With the help of my assistant, my wife, I had to test if gravity laws were still there. It looks like so. Nothing has changed in the last 2 or 3 billion years. A quick check was definitely due in, because I want to discuss today about the way of the bikes and if we are obsessed with it or not. This is because I recently watched the new format on Cade Media, their new podcast, The Wild Ones, and it was very interesting. Francis and Jimmi discussing quite important topics about bikes and the industry, but especially they touched on the weight, and I got a little bit puzzled by some of the conclusions they came out from their discussion, especially from Jimmy's side. I love Francis. He's been my first inspiration, and I have to say everything he said is quite agreeable. At the same time, the discussion took a couple of strange turns, and this is the time for me to review some of the points and yes, give my unsolicited opinion. The main discussion point of the podcast was, yes, about the bike weight and the obsession of cyclists with bike weight. Quite rightly so, I would say, but no, apparently, especially from Jimmy's point of view, this is not something that should be important or even measured, and I find quite strange. I don't know whether it was the format of the discussion between Francis and Jimmy, but it looks like Francis was maybe the reasonable voice, while Jimmy was yes, pointing directly at the fact that, well, riding a bike is enjoyable per se. Anything sub 10 kilos doesn't really matter, and you are going to have a nice workout anyway. You know, yes, it can be agreeable, but then I think we need to understand whether we are talking about performance bike, whether we are talking about if we want to go faster on the hills, faster on the flat, or simply enjoy a bike that is more agile and lighter, more responsive. Because there is a big difference whether you ride 7, 8, 9 or 10 kilo bikes. I'm not sure why Jimmy would not feel the difference. Francis actually mentioned that yes, the responsiveness is definitely tangible. At the same time, bikes at speed feel the same, but that argument would not really need to counter one another. So it is a characteristics of different bikes and something that should be explained without really any issues. Quite rightly, Francis pointed out that the importance of the weight is because it's the clearly identifiable difference between bikes, and we like to compare bikes on that measurement. Yes, whether measurements are important or not is for different discussions, but in terms of bike, yes, you do need to know the weight of your bike, especially if you're going to invest a lot of money in it. And I actually think that the weight should be published on all bikes to give you a comparison, and especially to understand what type of bike you're buying and not being fooled by maybe empty marketing words. While during the podcast almost seems insulting to find out what a bike weighs, to the point that it feels like almost body shaming the bikes if you ask how much they weigh. I just need to know, because I want to understand how my bike is going to behave. And yes, the weight difference makes the bike ride and feel differently. The acceleration, the responsiveness is a natural fact. And all the arguments that usually when the bike weight comes into discussion, like the fitness of the rider, the weight of the rider, the weight of the kit, I don't know if they're really relevant, because you will enjoy a light bike at what your characteristics are. So yes, if you are 100 kilos and you ride a light bike, you still will enjoy it. It doesn't matter that if you're 100 kilos you have to ride a 10 kilo bikes. It's really a bit of a nonsense to me. And I wonder why this approach will only appear in the cycling industry and not, for example, for motorbikes or cars. So then, if the weight of a car or a motorbike is important to define its characteristics, especially on a performance use, why should be avoided to ask how much a bike weighs when it is such an important element of how it behaves? And most importantly, the aerodynamics, of course, have been mentioned, almost like if it was going to be the counterbalancing to the weight issue, which is not. And I'm very thankful for Francis for not giving in the classic marketing story about, yes, exposed cables and a little bit of a profile frame are what is considered aero. So the aerodynamics mainly is body position, the clothes you're wearing, the helmet, the socks, yeah, all of these aspects are immensely important for the aerodynamics. Lastly, if you do have an aerodynamic bike, could be faster in specific circumstances. This is the last bit that usually doesn't get mentioned. So in the optimal circumstances, your aero bike also could feel faster, but that does not negate the effect of weight in how the bike behaves. Jimmy correctly pointed out that the industry has moved to wider rims, tubeless discs. Every component, yes, increases the weight of the bike, adding different characteristics, more comfort, better braking performance, some say. But again, if I go and buy a car and I want a sports car, I don't want to be sold an estate of an SUV, so something that, yes, it's got different characteristics to what I want. Why it should not matter what some riders' preferences are, and just classes that, well, it will be doing the same for you, and just get on with it. And of course the cost element is not mentioned, because today if you really want to shop for a very light bike you need big pockets. I understand that Francis, when he made the transition, did not notice any major difference comparing to the rim brake bikes he used to ride. Well, I might argue that the bikes that Francis rides are very, very nice and maybe more expensive than the average user. So today it is a little bit more difficult to get the same sensation of what light bikes used to be. It's a natural fact, and I would say maybe as a consumer I would love to know before I buy. So yes, my aim is every bike manufacturer should publish the weight, with or without pedals. I don't mind, because at the end of the day different pedal systems have different weight. But yes, it should be published, as every motorbike, every car publish the weight. Why bikes can't do the same? Anyway guys, it's a bit a rant of an old man on a bike. I still feel that it was an interesting podcast. I really like Francis, everything he publishes, and maybe slightly less Jimmy's point of view in this case. But guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and thank you again for watching. I'll see you to the next video. Ciao.